Okay, so we are going to move on the next presentation from Lê Hoài Ngân with the topics what happens when there is a major airline accident. So Hoài Ngân, please go on with your presentation.
Dạ mọi người thấy slide của em chưa?
Em tính rồi.
Good afternoon, teacher and everyone. And today I'm gonna talk about what happens when there is major airline accident. Well, before beginning, I want to refer to the objective of the article. Study insurance property on how the aviation insurance claim proceeds typically within the event of major airline accident. My presentation is structured as follows: 6 main points, and detail also the airline's claim process. My first point concerns accident report and investigation. Let me explain how is an airline insuring the event of major accident. There are two primary components, liability and hull. Liability covers for settlement with injured passengers or family of deceased passengers or third-party victims on the ground, first aid, remaining passenger repatriation, and hull coverage to compensate the airline company for physical loss of or damage to their property on aircraft, including wreckage removal. Lead insurer is notified of accident by the airline company or broker, and the lead insurer then conducts an investigation of the circumstances of accident using surveyor and lawyer. Her claim usually requires rebate lead aviation surveyor, while liability claim generally require legal representation. Besides that, about the independent accident investigation by governmental agencies, the country or state in which an airline accident occurs is responsible for conducting an independent accident investigation to determine the accident circumstances, possible cause of the accident, and, if appropriate, to issue safety recommendations. Interested parties, including the airline and manufacturers, for example, may be asked to participate in the investigation, which remains confidential until the report is published by governmental authority, and the report does not establish the liability of parties, but aims to improve the safety of civil aviation. And now turning to the second part, coverage analysis. The airline is to contract coverage in respect of all risks to which the aircraft may be exposed, except those that are specially included, and insurer will compensate passengers if the airline is required by law to identify the victim. For example, the accident happened during contract period. The damaged aircraft will in turn insure on the contract, and the airline complied with geographical conditions or inclusion, and is kept for an accident due to terrorism and an act of war. The airline will not be covered in the whole risk policies. Instead, the airline will have to notify its claim to the war risk insurers as to liability based on standard market practice. They will be written back to and covered by on-risk insurer. And the next is indemnification process. I will focus on two major issues. And firstly is the hull. In case of damage an aircraft, the insurer has to pay the airline for repair of the aircraft. Where the aircraft is in total loss, aircraft destroyed by an economical repair, and the insurer will pay amount outlined in the insurance contract. And for liability of carrier and indemnification process of passengers, the mechanism of passenger compensation is regulated by following legal instruments that outline fair compensation for victims or their family, such as international convention like Warsaw Convention 1929 and Montreal Convention 1999, regional regulations, European Union, and national law. Furthermore, for an aircraft, the sum insured for an aircraft vary greatly depending on type, age, and technical equipment, but the value of aircraft is specified in policy contract, having been agreed to by insurer and airline. For example, according to Airbus One, the average 2016 list price of a new Airbus 320 was approximately $98 million. For older models, the insured value could be much lower. And turning our attention now to indemnification process to the passengers, but this is an interim compensation. Financial payment is often provided to victim family as a first advance payment for financial relief in situation of distress. This is not final payment and does not have to pay back later and in any circumstance. Based on specific regulations, payment of interim compensation can be made to the spouse or parent of victim. Once the interim payment has been made, and the process of paying final compensation then commences. And the net is final compensation. Indemnification of passenger may take time. The family of victim may not want to discuss compensation at all because they are still in the grieving process, and the lawyer of the family have to make sure that they have gathered on relevant information to make a full and complete claim. So for jurisdiction, the international conventions specify jurisdictions where passenger claim and proceeding directly against the airline can be brought, such as airline creating a home country, country where the flight was to land, and country where the ticket was purchased, provided the airline has an office in the country of final destination, and the passenger country the residence. Only the case where Montreal Convention applies, provided the air carrier also operates there. And for assessment of indemnification levels, the International Convention do not provide rules as to calculation damage, but state that it will be a matter for law of the court where the case is brought to decide. Usually, the following factors are considered: type of damage, for example, economic damage or and non-economic damage such as pain and suffering. The calculation of the indemnity also factors in the victim's salary, age, and life expectancy, and all of which differ from one victim to another, and the application of these factors may also differ from one national law to another. In the final, the net applicant entitled to be indemnified. Besides that, the limitation of action. For international conventions stipulate that victim family have 2 years after the day of accident or the day of aircraft were supposed to arrive at destination in case of disappearance to claim against the airline carrier. If absent a filing of lawsuit within period of 2 years, no liability action can be brought against the airline nor the insurers. And now we come to the final point, closure of claim. As the insurance, the case will be considered closed when the hurt and passenger indemnity phases have been included, as long as that may require. Settlement of physical damage claim can be rapid, as they are paid on the insured value of aircraft. Liability claims are assessed and indemnified on a different basis, so can take longer. And that brings us to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you very much, Tran, for your presentation. Very good. And